All right, well, welcome everyone. This is the first meeting of the Tiger team of choral directors from across Tennessee. This is made up of the task forces from WTVMEA, MTVA, and ETVA, and all three associations are have task force that are going to determine how best each region will work toward these changes that are coming in the fall of 2026. The Tiger team here is designed to make sure that everything that's supposed to happen on a statewide level is happening, to talk about any alignment that we might want to do on a statewide level in terms of our regional processes, and really just to share information with each other as well. I thought we would start by just introducing everyone, letting us know where you teach, what association you're from. Dr. Frizzell, you're in the top left of my screen. Would you mind jumping in first?
Sure. Hey, everybody. JD Frizzell. I'm at Briarcrest in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm in WTVMEA.
Someone else jump right on in.
I'll go next. I'm Amanda Reagan. I apologize for not having my screen on. I'm having some internet bandwidth troubles, and I got kicked off a Zoom meeting that I was hosting on Friday night. So I want to make sure I stay on here. But I'm at Oak Ridge High School and in ETVA.
I'll go next. I'm James Harr. I'm in Chattanooga, teach at the Macaulay School. So I'm at ETVA, the lower region.
I'm Sarah Lemons. I teach at McNary Central, and I'm in WTVMEA.
I'm Rachel Hudgens. I teach at Dyer County High School, and I'm also in WTV MEA.
I'm TJ McLaughlin. I teach at Mount Juliet High School, and I'm in MTVA.
I'm Brenna Province. I'm at Lebanon High School, and I am in MTVA.
And I am in ETVA.
We caught the last part of that, Beth Ann. Would you say it again?
Well, I work at Greenville High School, and I'm in ETVA.
Hello, my name is Garrett Dew. I teach at Smyrna High School and I am in MTVA.
And I'm Brian Russell. I teach at Stewart's Creek High School. I'm a member of MTVA, but I'm here as the all-state choral chair and just functioning on a statewide level in terms of just organizing, and you all will make all the decisions on this stuff. If everyone's cool, I'm going to share my screen so we can kind of look at the agenda and get our life going here. Let's see here. Not that one. There we go. All right. So can everyone see the screen now? All right, great. So the first thing is going to be looking at the All-State Handbook. And this is where, if you have questions along the way, because there's a whole lot of stuff in here, please jump right in and ask questions. I thought this would be a good place to start because it represents all of the changes that we voted into place at our caucus meeting this past spring, but it puts it in very actionable, realistic language. This is something that I would like to send out to the state at some point this year so that they kind of figure out exactly what we're looking at for next fall. But if there's anything that's unclear, let's take a look at it. So I'm just going to jump right on up to the very top. Let me get rid of that window so it's a little bit easier for me to move. Where's the thing about? There it is. All right, so some of them are pretty innocuous. So as you can see, just changing, and we're going to add a choir to the all-state roster. We're going to have a 9th and 10th grade SATB choir, 11th and 12th grade SATB choir. Our SSA and TTB choirs will be 9th through 12th grade. That's the only changes on that page. Here on this second page here, students participating in an all-state ensemble must be enrolled in grades 9 through 12. That was a change we made this last year. We're just making sure that it's reflected here as well. All right, here are the numbers that we're looking at for these ensembles. The 9, 10, and 11, 12 SATB choirs will be 144 singers. That's the same size that our current SATB choir is now. Our SSAA choir will consist of 160, and currently it can be either 140 or 144, depending on the rounding process that happens in the quotas. So it will be a little bit bigger. The good news is about doing that for that ensemble is that that ensemble can handle, 20 more humans up there and still fit on the same number of risers and in our same performance spaces. Just because typically the SSA choir has smaller humans in there. And the All-State TTB choir will remain 112 people. We had in the old handbook things that are still in place for this coming year, some dates that there would be a screening audition that was to happen before March 1st. We're saying that that needs to happen before November 8th, and not in the calendar year of All-State, but in the academic year of All-State. And the reason we need to do that before November 8th is to make sure that it's performed an audition before that time, give our state 2 weeks to judge them, and that still allows us to get an all-state roster in place by the time we get to Thanksgiving break. We'll talk a little bit more about timeline here in a moment. And there's again that November 8th deadline. Here's where we really start getting into the substantive changes. And let's just, again, I thought it'd be a good idea for us to all make sure that we're on the same page. So in terms of eligibility, each region will have a set number of students who are eligible for second tier testing, but are not guaranteed a spot in All-State. So unlike in the years past, where we would have our top seeded students that would have a spot in All-State if they passed second tier, we're not going to say that the top 14 will go to All-State and the next 10 are alternates. Instead, we're going to say that for grades 9, 10 sopranos and altos, the top 24 chairs from each region will be eligible for second tier, 14 for SATB and 10 for SSAA. 9, 10 tenors and basses, 14 for SATB and 6 for TTBB. 11, 12, 14 for SATB and 16 for SSAA. And 11, 12 tenors and basses, 14 for SATB and 12 for TTBB. So as you can see, there's 12 11th and 12th graders eligible for TTBB and only 6 11th, 9th and 10th graders. The thought is we wanted to mimic the current allocation of students in All-State. So for example, we have very few 10th graders as compared to 11th and 12th graders in All-State. And I think All-State will be a better experience for everyone if we have a higher percentage of those students coming from 11th and 12th grade. So this automatically sets those percentages for us. Regions should alternate second tier ensemble placements equitably, alternating choir placements between SATB and the gender choirs in such a way that all ensembles will receive a similar distribution. I'm not sure exactly how it's done in East and West, but I know in Middle, on 1 year, odd chairs will go to SATB and even chairs will go to either SSAA or TTBB. And we kind of do that until we run out of chairs for SATB, and then the remainder go to SSAA or TTBB. But that way there's not a real or perceived difference between the ensembles. Something that's going to make it into the handbook that we're doing this year, but we'll make sure it's codified for next year, is that TMEA will purchase copies of the All-State music and have available for distribution at the regional auditions. The thought being that if it's possible for each region to, give out your results to directors the evening of auditions and then literally give them their All-State music, then we don't have to worry about that time between when you find out who's eligible for All-State and then actually getting the music. We're doing that this year as well. In fact, I believe they're going to be shipped out this week to the 3 different regions so that regions should have those by the time you have your regional auditions this year. Any questions so far from anyone?
I have a question.
Alrighty.
So you said that students that are eligible to audition for All-State are not guaranteed a spot. Are they guaranteed at least an alternate place if they because it's I know it's a second round of auditions. So are they guaranteed to be an alternate for All-State at least?
Yes, provided that they get a 50% or higher on the second tier audition rubric.
Got it. Thank you.
Which I think is pretty generous. I can't imagine anyone that's going to be ranking that high from our regions will not get a 50% at the second tier audition, but sometimes they don't come in prepared or something.
Something we'll
All
have
right.
to figure out in West is we have an all Northwest and an all Southwest. And Rachel, I don't know if you guys have talked about that, or maybe I missed how this works. Can you clarify, Rachel, if you have talked about that, how we would choose the top?
I have not spoken about it really except in passing. I think that that's something that we're going to have to maybe have a committee wise on our end to discuss how we're going to do that, because that would put us at basically 3 auditions instead of 2, all before November the 8th. So that might be something that we need to get together outside of this and figure out, what's the best course of action for us.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to see, what this looked like, on the TMEA end before we, move forward with any decision there as well.
All right. So, first of all, could you all hear the tuba a minute ago playing in the background? I've got my son practicing downstairs. I want to make sure that wasn't too much of a distraction. All right. Um, so all these are great things that we'll figure out as we go. So, the second tier auditions, students eligible for second tier will learn all of the all-state rep of that choir to which they are assigned and will audition with excerpts. So that's just like this year. Same thing as in the past. If a piece is in a language other than English or Latin, they have the option of singing that on a neutral syllable. Um, let's see here. The regional auditions will be billed for sound files according not to the number of singers and alternates, but to the number of singers eligible for second tier from their region. So if people from your school are ranked in the top 24 or whatever it is that from those earlier numbers, they will be charged for those learning files. So the same as this year as well. Um, the All-State Choral Chair, in conjunction with the ensemble chairs, will determine the audition selections. The audition selections will be kept secret until the date of the audition window, not the actual day of auditions, because as we'll look at on the timeline here in a minute, the audition window will be a week and a half window or so where people can submit their recordings. The All-State Choral General Chair will prepare the sound files and integrate them into that platform and processing. This is new. Second tier auditions will be an online platform provided by TMEA. All efforts will be made to ensure blind auditions, whereby adjudicators do not see the students or know anything about their identity. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about Snap Audition if that's the way we're going to go and what its functionality is. The second tier auditions will be no fewer than 5 and no more than 9 calendar days. I think that's something we might be able to change a little bit depending on the year, so we can be a little bit flexible now while we're determining this. The excerpts will not be published until the auditions window begins. Student recordings must be recorded and submitted during this window. No exceptions will be granted. Directors, not students, will submit the audition recordings. Directors will confirm the authenticity of recording, that the voice heard on the recording is indeed the student's voice, and that no unallowed aids were included in the process of making the recording. Auditions for students from across the state will be adjudicated online by a panel of judges from across the state. So if each region is sending, like I said, 24 students for on the alto 1 part, 14 of which I think went to 18 of which went here and 6 went the other place. Then a panel of judges will just listen to all of the alto ones for SATB from 9-10 from across the state. And the judges won't know what region they're from, what school they're from, anything like that. Let's see here. There's the numbers right there, 30 total for alto ones on down the road there. Panels might be assigned more than one cohort or part, but students will only audition against students in their own part, ensemble, and grade band. So 9-10 will audition together and 11-12 will audition together. Auditions will be ranked, and then the top students from each part will be selected into All-State, regardless of their regional affiliation. And here's the numbers that end up going into All-State per the ensemble numbers that we had earlier. For grades 9, 10, 16 in the All-State SATB, I'm sorry, 18 in the SATB, 16 in the SSAA, and on down the line. I'll finish this part, then I'll pause again for questions. There will be a minimum score at second tier of 50% to be considered eligible. And this next part is just if there aren't students from across the state, if there aren't enough students with that minimum score to fill these quotas, then those spots will be filled by students in other parts according to the following. So again, this will just happen in very rare occasions. If there are not 24 SSAA Alto 1s from 11th and 12th grade who receive the minimum score from across the state, then those spots will be first filled by Alto 1s from grades 9, 10. And then they'll be filled by Alto 2s in SSAA from 11, 12. And then they'll be filled according to 9, 10 SSAA, 11, 12 SATB Alto 1s, and 11, 12 SATB Alto 2s. And then finally, 9, 10 SSAA. Oh, it should be Alto 1s, then Alto 2s. So that'll be a change I have to make there. So again, it's kind of similar to what we do right now. If you run out of alternates for second tier in your region, then we fill them according to a certain formula to make sure that the students already know the part and they've passed. So this is the way of doing that. And if there continue to be no eligible students who make that 50% threshold, then those all-state spots will just go unfilled. And again, I seriously doubt we'll ever be at that point. Any student with the required minimum score will be placed as alternates for their choir and their part based on the rankings from second. The choral chair, all-state choral chair will coordinate the placing and filling of spots. And then number 6, to ensure that each region is represented at all-state, the top ranking chairs from each region will be guaranteed a spot in all-state, provided that they meet the minimum score at second tier regardless of their rank. So in grades 9, 10 sopranos and altos, each region will be guaranteed 3 chairs per part, regardless of choir assigned. Grades 9, 10 tenors and basses, the top ranked 2 chairs. 11 and 12 sopranos and altos, top ranked 4 chairs. And tenors and basses, the top rank 3 chairs per part. If these guaranteed students are ranked below the number of chairs per part allowed in the state. So that means if we have 18 alto 1s from, that have made it into all-state, but we're to the point where Middle Tennessee needs this clause in effect, where each region has a guaranteed spots. If Middle Tennessee has fewer than 3 alto 1s in either SSAA or SATB, then they will be able to be guaranteed, but we're not going to bump another kid out of all-state who earned a spot there. Instead, as it says, the number of chairs in that section for that ensemble will be temporarily increased rather than substituting for a student from another region. That's a lot. Let's pause for questions and discussion.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, is that this system that you've put together here, it eliminates the quota system that we run on now, like the allotment system, other
That's
than
right.
being
That's right.
guaranteed, those chairs that you just discussed. But we won't be doing that little equation anymore with West Tennessee gets X number, Middle Tennessee gets X number.
Correct. It is, and that's what the committee came up with that worked, for a couple of years, and then that's what the caucus voted on this past spring as well.
I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding correctly.
Yes. Other questions?
Sure. How is the billing then done for sheet music that's given to the regions?
So each region is probably going to get around 400. In fact, each region is going to get the same number because, each region has the same number of students who are eligible for second tier. So any kid who is eligible for second tier will be given a packet of music, and then the regions will be billed for their portion of those, for those 400 packets. And then if the region wants to bill each school for however many, packets their school got, they certainly can do that. That's similar to what we do now. We're doing this year for All State Music, where TMEA has purchased it, and then we're going to give it to the regions beforehand, and then the regions will give it to the schools. The school will pay the regions, and the regions will pay TMEA back.
I know everybody at our meeting last week was really excited about that. That's a
Well,
great move.
there will still be some things that we have to print, world premiere pieces that aren't yet in print, public domain pieces, but a majority of the pieces will be handed out whenever each region decides to hand them out.
I have another question. This might be getting ahead of it, but at the actual second tier audition or whatever we're calling it now, the window with when they're submitting, are they singing with the recording of all voices and all that still, or?
It'll be similar to what we do this year, and we can change that if we decide we need to. Since I've been doing it, I like them singing with even the computerized versions of the other voices and not just the accompaniment. I just think that's a more realistic expectation for them, especially when it's second tier and they've been singing with an octet. So yeah, that would be my preference, is to continue singing with accompaniment and the all voices track, especially if they're just doing it as an individual, the way they'll be doing it in fall 2026.
I have one more question, and then I will promise to try not to ask any more questions.
No, that's what we're here for.
This sort of piggybacks on Garrett's question from earlier. So under this system, if I've got, if West Tennessee has, 14 students auditioning for whichever choir, I don't know, I can't scroll back up your thing. Does that guarantee them, like if they are at that second tier audition, that's like the new all-state audition, right? So if they're at that audition, they're either going to be a participant in the choir, and if they don't make the choir, then they're an alternate. Like, is that where the alternates come from? Because I just
Correct.
didn't see where alternates were addressed here. I might have missed it.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere.
Oh, I believe you. I believe I missed it.
No, yeah. Oh, I wasn't trying to be snarky, I promise. Yeah, I don't know where it was, but I know we just said it a second ago. But yes,
I
if
see
they
it.
participate in
It
is it on
says
the
any
page?
students, yeah, it says any students with the required minimum score will be placed as alternates, just based on the rankings, just in order.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Any other questions? And that's the most substantive changes. All this other stuff down here is the description that we used to have for second tier, the way it'll be this coming year, and it's just showing that we got it. I did propose this new rubric. Everything is on the table for us to look at this over the next few months. But here is what we have. I think pitch, rhythm, and entrances worked when it was just a pass fail, and all we were doing was just checking to make sure they knew the music, right? But if we're actually ranking, I think we need a better rubric in terms of not just can they sing the music, but how beautifully they're doing it. So a 50-point scale with clear indicators of what each range would be for technical preparation of pitch, technical preparation of rhythm, intonation, musicality, diction, and then tone. Knowing that this 25 range here, 25 and up, is required to be eligible for all state. And anything below that, because we don't want someone in all state when tone is seldom possesses space, so this is something I don't want to get into too much today, but certainly something that we're going to need to codify before we put it out there for our state to see. And then let's see here. This is all the old stuff again from all states that we're replacing with. This is all instrumental. And I think the last part down here, anything that is in red is That's it. So that's kind of a brief rundown of what the second tier process would look like. Here is a proposed timeline. I ran this by J.R. Baker. And again, these are just ish dates. Nothing is set in stone at all, right? But let's kind of start from the end, right? If we want to announce our all-state rosters before Thanksgiving, then that would be Thursday, November 19th. That would be exactly 1 week before Thanksgiving in 2026. And then the very next day, the Opry room block would open for the world. So it's the goal of instrumental, jazz, and all the different areas to have all state rosters done by that Thursday so that folks still have that Friday to make their room reservations if they want to hop on that block. So if we're going to do that by that Thursday, we would have a window of judging from across the state that would give them people 2 weekends from Saturday, November 7th through Monday, November 16th. Backing up from that, we would have a window whereby students could put out their recordings from October 27th through November 5th. So that ends up being 10 calendar days total. And again, on that Tuesday is the day that they would figure out here are the 30 to minute and a half excerpts of each piece that you will actually have to sing, and the recordings would be on the online platform. What I do love about this online thing, well, first of all, what I don't like about it is technology and the ability for things to go haywire. But with a 10-day window, it gives you time to mitigate that part of it. And I like the 10-day window because, if you're sick on October 27th, then you've got a few days to get over that and still put in your recording. And if you're well on October 27th, you better do it pretty quickly before you get sick on November 4th, right? So that whole thing that where our instruments are so tied to our own health, that makes it a little bit easier for our kids, especially in a high stakes environment where we're actually ranking these second tier auditions. Oh, I'm sorry. Second tier excerpts will be released on October 20th. So they get a week before the audition window opens to actually just practice with the excerpts. Forgot about that layer of it. So that's pretty nice. And then if that's what we're trying to do, I just put these dates down that if you wanted the regional choir event, all West, Mid-State, All East to happen before second tier, then we're probably looking at middle of October. And if you're looking at middle of October, then you probably want your regional auditions to be end of September. And boy, that's early, you know. And if we're backing up even further, I have asked our clinicians for 2027 to have music to me by the end of October this year so that we can get it vetted and approved by the executive committee. And we can go on and announce that music really early and have it purchased and in Regent's hands by middle of August or so that whenever you decide to have those, and I think each region will then want to probably announce what your regional audition rep is going to be by May 1st of 2026 of this school year, so that people come back and aren't having to wait for that. They can jump right in, in the first few days of school and get kids registered and all that stuff. So let's have some discussion about what this looks like.
I lied because I'm going to ask another question. Can you guys tell me, Middle and East, when you have your regional auditions now? Because that last weekend in September, that's already when our regional auditions are in West Tennessee for both sets of choir. So I was just wondering when you guys had your regional auditions.
For Middle Tennessee this year, it's October 24th and 25th, and then the regional honor choir is like November 17th, 18th.
For East Tennessee, we've been having our regional auditions like 2 weeks into September. We do it pretty early. We are we're on a rotation of public domain pieces for our auditions, and so we give them to directors like May. So students sometimes we'll take them home over the summer and they have them the whole time. But we audition middle of September, and we usually do our regional choir event the weekend right before Thanksgiving. FYI.
And I don't think that there's a compelling reason why you would have to have your regional event before second tier. You could have your regional event after all state. I do like the sequence of, having like in our county, for example, we have Rutherford All County Honor Choir, and then they go to Mid-State, and then they go to All State. I like the logic of that, but it's possible that that's not going to stick when we move to this timeline, just because everything would be so compressed into that fall semester. So I think all of that's on the table.
Yesterday we had. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go, Will. You go, Will.
Yesterday we had prep clinics where different universities in the 3 areas of ETVA rehearse the audition pieces. It's also a chance for the universities to say, "Come here." But anyway, the consensus from a lot of the teachers was they would love for our regional event to stay the same weekend because it conflicts less with football and such like that. They are worried about putting too much on those high achieving kids. And so, Garrett, I'll let you finish your question, but for other people who are sort of in the same position, do you worry you're going to run into that where you're like burdening the high achieving kids who are probably going to make all state by having to learn regional music and all state music at the same time? That was our big question from yesterday.
Well, my thought was you technically couldn't you have your regional event when the judging for all states happening? So like if MTVA were to keep our same weekend, we would still be we would be at Mid-State Monday, November 16th and Tuesday, November 17th, and then Mid-State's over, and then a few days later the all-state roster is announced. Like it's possible. We do have, like Will, you just brought up, you'd have to have your kids prepared for all-state auditions and then go to Mid-State and learn that repertoire because I think the only region that auditions on the regional repertoire is all West. Like you guys do things from the clinicians. So, I mean, yes, I agree with Will that some of your high achieving kids, especially if they're uh, like band and choir kids, there are some kids in MTVA that make mid-state for band and choir and all state for band and choir. And then it's like, what do they have to do?
The only good thing, well, it's not the only good thing, but one good thing about having your regional event before all state second tier is that our current handbook, and I like this, says that you must participate in your regional honor choir in order to participate in all state. And so if regional events were to happen after all state, then we would have to find some way to kind of track that and make sure that students are attending that after. But if the regional event were to happen before all state rosters are announced, I think that does give an incentive for those high achieving students to, stay there to go to their regional event. Whereas I could see, if they found out they didn't make all state, oh, I'm just not going to do all east. So that's another reason to possibly do it. Will, go ahead, please.
You covered our next point at ETVA that I was going to talk about. A lot of teachers were worried that our regional honor choir event would suffer in quality because some kids would go, well, I didn't make all state, I don't care, I'm going to drop out. So you brought up the next point I was going to bring up. You're muted.
Yes, I just realized that. Sorry. Things to think about here. Each region will get 400 copies. That's the number of kids that are eligible for second tier. We would again aim to have that in your hands prior to auditions. And again, we're doing that this year. we have to make every consideration along with our instrumental colleagues, and they have to make their calendars along with us. If indeed we are talking about having all East choir, all East band, all East auditions, all before the end of November, and plus, the all-state chair placement for instrumental and the second tier for choir, that is very compressed. And we've got to do whatever we can to make sure that we're not tripping on each other to make that happen. That's why I started with JD, because I know JD is working on the instrumental side of this, and he thinks this works well with what they have. This is what Garrett was just saying. Can regional events happen during second tier testing or after it closes? Should regional honor events happen after all state? So all these are definitely things. Amanda, go ahead.
Word on word on the street from ETSBOA is, and actually I'm going to see if I can find the text from my orchestra director, that they have already or are heavily considering having their regional event in February after All-State happens, and scheduling their auditions actually during our current time for ETVA, thus kind of keeping kids from doing both in East Tennessee. I got the impression from my orchestra director that that was already set in stone, but I could also have misunderstood, but they are heavily considering. Yeah, he says for 26-27 senior clinic auditions for ETSBOA will be November 21st, which is in the middle of our ETVA choral event, and their all-state be on January 5 through 9, and then senior clinic for ETSBOA, which is the regional event, would be in February. So that's just word on the street from ETSBOA. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, I think all of us are going to have to advocate, and just leaders of ETVA and ETSBOA and WTVMEA and WTSBOA, all the regional associations are going to have to come together and figure out this calendar at the same time. Otherwise, we're going to have bad blood. Things aren't going to work well, and it just doesn't serve kids. So whatever it is that we can do to try to make this happen. And of course, especially the band side, they've got whole competitive marching band world that they're having to deal with. And so they have other layers. So I understand why they might be more quick to have their regional events after all state. We don't have as much of that to deal with. And so maybe it's a little bit easier for us to. Moving back to our agenda here, and I think I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I'd like to just talk about Snap Audition, and then let's talk about what each region's doing here. So I'm going to stop sharing, everybody. At least I thought I was going to. I did it. Okay. So Snap Audition is a program that Carter Noblin has been using. Hey, Carter, for the last couple of years with instrumental chair placement auditions, and it's worked well. I had a little Zoom call with some of their product people a few weeks ago, and started talking to them about what it would look like if we wanted to use this for second tier. In terms of second tier, it does everything we want it to do. Students can create a video file. They can record themselves video, but then the judges would only hear the audio from that. So that allows the directors to confirm that indeed that is that student, but then the anonymity of that student would remain intact, which is important for us. I'd like to talk about the possibility of regions using Snap Audition for your regional auditions as well. How great would it be if we didn't have to take up a weekend or 2 weekends in the middle of competitive marching band season and football season for these auditions, if they could be done another way? So Snap Audition has an embedded sight reading platform that works with Sight Reading Factory. And so let's just say that we wanted to, I'll speak for MTVA here. If MTVA wanted to say that grades 9 and 10 will sight read at sight reading factory level 2, and 11th and 12th graders will sight read at sight reading factory level 3. It'll be 8 measures in length. Well, that gives the students something they can practice with, and for nearly unlimited means. And then when they go to record their auditions, it's done in a browser, either on their phone or on a laptop. And they would say, all right, they would sign up as a 9th or 10th grader, and it would give them 5 opportunities to sight read. Each time it would be a new sight reading example on that same level. And then the student gets to choose which of those 5 they want to submit. They can stop after 1, they can do all 5, and then again, they get to choose. And then the judge would see the sight reading example, an image of that sight reading example that they were supposed to have read. And so while everyone wouldn't be reading the exact same one, they would be following the exact same algorithm and the same set of sight reading standards. If we were to move to something like that, I see a lot of possibilities. TMEA does not have an opinion on whether regions should move to in-person or online auditions for these types of things. But I did want to say that that is a promising product, and they have been terrific to work with. In fact, some of the things that they hadn't thought about, like they mostly do this for instrumental folks. They hadn't thought how singers need to have the ability to hit that little tuning fork button and hear their opening pitch. That it would be terrific to set a metronome so that each student is being assessed at the same tempo. And they're already building in that functionality, and they promised they would have it by January 1st, 2026. So that if we wanted to have listening sessions and training sessions statewide on this platform, we could do that this spring in order to launch it by the fall. But Snap Audition could still be something, and TMEA has agreed to pay for that for second tier auditions. Who has questions about or discussion about the possibility of online version for regional auditions, sight reading, second tier, etc.? Will.
Sort of a logistics question. So Snap has its own subscription, I guess you'd call it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then wouldn't Sight Reading Factory be a separate subscription if it's communicating with that?
It's not through Snap Audition. Now, if the student wanted to practice with Sight Reading Factory beforehand, then they could use the free version or they could have their own subscription. But in terms of like Snap Audition talking to Sight Reading Factory, that's embedded into the software.
Okay, thank you.
Who has opinions, even preliminary ones? Oh, I'm sorry, Garrett, I didn't see your hand. Fired up.
It's okay. So mine is an opinion. So my only problem with online recorded auditions is the discrepancy in audio quality when it comes to students, especially when it comes to tone. And I'm sure that's a big part of the rubric. It typically is. When we had our MTV auditions online during COVID for those 2 years, I mean, I tried my very, very best to not take into account the technological disadvantages that some kids may have been going through. Because if I'm recording on an iPhone 16 with an attached microphone versus my school issued laptop, those are going to have different sound qualities. And that's just naturally going to affect tone. So is there things that we can provide, resources we can have for people to get the highest quality? Maybe this is like a Carter, what have you experienced kind of thing?
So from the instrumental standpoint, that's been a concern, but has never, to my knowledge, been an issue. I've not had a judge reach out with issues of recording quality. To your point, submitting auditions online has changed pretty significantly in the last 3 or 4 years. But it is something to take into account. Something we have talked about is doing some education pieces for our directors and our students to make sure that best practices in recording on a cell phone, best practices on recording with an external microphone, whatever that might be, just to kind of help work through that process.
Brenna.
So I actually like to have the regional auditions in person. I think that it's a really good experience for kids to go through the actual process, everything from waiting, whether it's in the cafeteria or the auditorium, the waiting room, and then standing outside of the audition room. And sorry, I have a newborn. I think that it's a really good process overall, and I think it's great for students. And I'm going to go pick her up, but that's my general thoughts.
I'll speak to what Garrett was saying earlier and also to Brenna. I remember when MTVA went to those recorded auditions during COVID. And I'll say that I think the recordings that the kids from my school made were terrific. They sounded great because all I did was airdrop them a GarageBand file so that they didn't have one device over here and they were doing it this way. But that also allowed me to make sure they weren't enhancing the recordings and all that sort of stuff. Um, and that was something that I feel like a lot of schools would have access to. Those types of things. These days, it's pretty common to have, a set of iPads for a school that we could, check out for something like that. So many schools do have these, one-on-one devices. And so I think we're getting to the point where we could find ways to, like Carter was saying, to help directors find ways to make those recordings, all sound the same. And Brenna, I agree. I think there's something to that in-person audition. The only reason I think we ought to consider is just the timeline. If we get down into it and decide that, we want to have auditions in early September, well, does it serve the kids better by doing it all in one day, or does it serve them, especially those that are also involved in mid-state band and marching band and all the other things, football, fall sports, to give them a window. And then finally, the only bad thing about having one audition day is that if you have a cold, you could still go and do a pretty good job on your clarinet excerpt, but it's pretty tough. And all of a sudden, your entire year of, all East, all state is kind of wiped out because, you caught COVID earlier in the week. So just reasons to do it. But again, in terms of TMEA, how each region does their regional audition is completely up to you guys. TJ. I think you have to unmute there, TJ.
Sorry about that. Would it work with are kids going to have several takes on things when they record their excerpt or whatever their audition is, or is it this thing goes a lot, I guess it's the type of thing we're going back to that model where they can record as many times as they want type of thing and then submit their best.
That's my understanding for the prepared pieces. For the sight reading, it's done in the app on the browser. And it's done live 5 times. So that does give you a limit on those.
Now, I will tell you, Snap Audition has that feature where you can record in browser. My hesitancy there, well, not my hesitancy there, because Snap will log, this is their first attempt, and you can limit the number of attempts they have. This is their first attempt. This is their 48th attempt. My concern would be that if a student doesn't do it through that second, third, fourth attempt, and they just try and submit a whole brand new audition, that's about $4 a kid every time that happens.
Gotcha. Have you experienced that with kids are able to record themselves many, many times that the playing field, like it's almost kind of going back to Brenna's initial thing too. I don't know. I'm not saying yay or nay, but there is an element of when it's live, it's like I've got to do this I've got to step up and I've got to do this right now to my best of my ability, and I get one chance at this. Have you found in the instrumental side of things, Carter, that that everybody is, I guess, is everybody's A game leveling the playing field more?
So it's a little tough for me to discern that, given that my experience has been all state, and the kid that has resigned, the fact that they're just going to be 15th trumpet, um, and they're just going to submit something to submit something. That kind of is what it is. But yes, you are going to see, I think, a leveling of the playing field, because the nerves and the tension around an audition aren't going to be as prevalent. However, I think your variable there is that sight reading element. Because I do think, especially if you're going to, I don't know how many selections your students sight read through now, but if they have 5 attempts, that's pretty tense, because it's going to be boom, 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 boom. Sorry, a fifth. Um, so I think that tension and anxiousness, for lack of a better term, will still be present. But you are correct that students are going to do what they can to submit the best recording they can.
Brian, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I was saying it was Garrett, then Will, then
Oh.
Rachel. Sorry about that.
Am I understanding correctly that with Snap Audition, they're recording the audition, the prepared pieces on their own, and then uploading them to Snap Audition, or is it all like it is an audition?
So there are a couple of different submission paths. You can do what we do with the All-State instrumental piece, where you are uploading a file of your audition. You can also do an audition where you open up snapaudition.com, you do your registration piece, and then you record in the browser. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Will?
So yeah, my first question was similar to Garrett's about procedure for this. I'm assuming the regionals would have to be on the same plane as to how we do that. And it sounded like what we were talking about is the kids would record the thing on their own, the prepared pieces on their own, and then they would sight read in the browser. But it also said in the handbook that the teachers shall submit. So we have to be there for the students. Is that correct? I'm
No.
just okay.
No, that's a great question, though. Regardless of whether we have them do their prepared in the browser or record and then upload, and assuming that we're going to do the sight reading only in the browser in order to have that different thing come up, they will do everything in the platform, and then the platform will not allow the student to hit submit. It'll basically,
Okay.
the director will then see all of their students and their progress on the submission process. And the directors will be able to go through and say, yes, this is that child, submit that one. Yes, this is that child, submit.
Gotcha. That's the first part. And then this also speaks the whatever procedure we adopt, also is going to kind of relate to what TJ was talking about with leveling the playing field. My concern with having and this is something that ETVA has brought up a lot with second tier recording auditions, or because we're considering doing that for All East as well, and doing screenings virtually, and that has been brought up for years and years. Many of our members don't think that recording and giving kids the window to learn the recorded section is representative of whether they've learned the whole piece. And so there was a concern that well, first of all, there was a concern that our ensemble quality at All East and All State would go down because of that practice. But also, my fear is that we talk about leveling the playing field with recording things because it takes the nerves away. But actually, you're moving the goalpost away, and those with better access to better recording equipment, I feel like would therefore be favored. So that was just a point I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I think we're at a point in terms of recording technology that I don't disagree with you, but I think that has become marginal. While there are certainly differences in technology, if you set clear criteria about what a student can and cannot do to a video, like you should not allow a student to go in and enhance their audio. They shouldn't add reverb, they shouldn't add echo, the obvious pieces. I think there's some narrowing of that, but I don't disagree if a student has access to a private recording studio, of course theirs is going to sound potentially different than someone else's.
And some of that just
Rich?
comes from experience of recording things. Sorry, I jumped in, but if a kid has done it a lot, they're going to be better at it because they've had access to it. That's my point. I'm done.
Rachel?
I think I am sort of piggybacking on some of what William said. I will tell you that for many, many years, I was a staunch opponent of recorded auditions. However, when my own daughter missed out on an opportunity because she happened to be very ill on an audition date, kind of made wheels turn in my head a little bit. Maybe it shouldn't have taken that, but I digress. But my question was, if we're moving towards a recorded audition, and I think that I can be on board with that for sure. If a student has the excerpt, you know, I forget what you had in the proposal, but if the student has the excerpt, say 24 hours or 48 hours in advance of the audition, could we level the playing field by making it a one and done? Like once you get on that browser, you've got we can give them their one shot audition, as opposed to uploading a file and sort of maybe split the difference of, this kid has great recording equipment and I just have my Dyer County High School super cheap Chromebook. We could split that difference by actually making it a single shot audition that they're already used to because they're doing in person. But, the day before they know their excerpt, so they can at least, practice that excerpt and get it as good as they can before they take their one shot. I don't know if there's any merit to that.
I don't know that I would encourage a single attempt. I do think it would be worthwhile to limit attempts. I think what would happen in a single attempt is one of two things. Number one, if I got 16 measures in and all of a sudden made a mistake, I'm not going to fight through that mistake. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to close the browser and go, well, I didn't make a mistake this year. Or I'm going to stop and submit another registration, which again is a whole other issue. And you can manage that on the back end. If you notice that Brian Russell submitted 11 auditions, you can manage that the way you would need to. Again, I think there is merit in limiting the number of takes if you're going to do it in the browser, but I would not limit it to one.
Garrett, go ahead.
Would it be, because we were looking at that timeline, the proposed timeline for next year, is it possible to just have the recordings released when the excerpts released when the recording window opens? Because I do think it's important for like what Will was saying. If kids are able to have a week for 6 pieces of music is plenty of time to learn a minute of each song. But if they're eating into their recording time by doing that, that's kind of like, I don't know, a way to discourage them from cramming. Because like I've had kids that learned a piece the day before second tier because it's pass fail right now. Um, but if they had a week, like, oh, hey, here's what you have to learn in a week, they can do that easily. But if you ask them to sing anything outside of that music for the audition, they would fail miserably.
I think that's a good point. The timeline I put out there was, I think, October 20th, releasing the excerpts, and then the window would open on October 27th. Um, that's something that, I think for Middle Tennessee right now, for our regional auditions, we have them learn a couple of pieces, but only sing excerpts. And typically we release the excerpts 2 days before.
Mhm.
We could reduce that from 7 days down to fewer. Um, my own opinion is that I want to give them a day or two or something, because what if their family is going on vacation during that 9 day window, but they have the first 2 days? I don't want the first day to be the only day they have to record to be the day that we release the excerpts. So that's the only reason that I would think maybe it's smart to give them a little bit of time, but a week's probably
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah, I think a day
Before
or
we
two
go,
is probably fine.
yeah. Before we go to Will, I think as we're thinking through all these eventualities, two things. Number one, second tier pretty much has to be online, right? So any option that we're talking about for online versus in person, we're talking about regional auditions. I don't know that each region has to do the same thing, right? Each region is going to get the same number of kids that are eligible for second tier. So, however your region wants to handle that is up to your region. The second thing, as you're considering this, is in terms of real numbers, what are we more worried about? And this is a real question, not one with an answer in mind. Do we think more kids would be disenfranchised by um, not having access to the same level of recording equipment? Especially like Carter was saying, given how the technology has just equalized that for a lot of our students these days. Or second, are our kids more disenfranchised by being ill on the one day of in-person auditions? Or, stressed out because they're also having all these middle school or orchestra auditions that same weekend? So I guess you have to look at, what serves the greatest number of kids in the most impactful way. All right, I'll be done for a while. Will, I think you were next, then TJ. Oh, sorry, JD, I hit the wrong button.
This goes back to the proposed timeline. In it, you put excerpts are released on October 20th, and then October 27th was the proposed audition window. However, the new handbook, page 8, says, uh, page 8, number 1, letter A, the audition excerpts will not be published until the audition window begins. So will that with that week window actually be there?
Yeah, so that's just a mistake on my part. So
Okay.
we will adjust the All-State handbook to represent that change, and then we'll adjust whatever this committee decides in terms of how far in advance, if at all, we want to announce the cuts, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you.
This is something real quick, piggybacking off of Brian. If we're really looking at it from what's the most fair and equitable practice, there is a level of disadvantage too for a kid that lives an hour and a half away from the audition site that has to somehow get there on a Friday night or a Saturday. And I know I've had kids that would have made the choir, but then their parents they flake out and they don't take them, or their ride falls through, or whatever it is. So this would, if you went the other way, even, if Carter's saying like a lot of the technology is starting to level out where most kids have access to a pretty good option, that's something to consider.
To what Rachel was saying earlier about, is it possible for us to limit it to like a one and done thing, or what Carter was saying, 2 or 3 opportunities? Another level or layer of that is, what happens if the kid is recording on the browser at home in a place where there's not really great cell signal or Wi-Fi, and all of a sudden the recording we get from them is kind of pixelated and skips through stuff. That's tough. Whereas if we allow them to record on something that doesn't require internet and then upload that recording, uploading might take forever, but at least it'll be the full recording. So I think that's something else to consider when we talk about that. Rachel, did I see your hand before we go to Will? Did Rachel have her hand up?
Not this time.
Okay. Will, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm making sure I bring out things that members told me to talk about. This is sort of a question to all the regions, but like, or how are we feeling? Because in the past, with second tier auditions, we've just been doing a screening and there is no sight reading component. So is where philosophically, of course, I love sight reading. However, if the regionals are doing that, is it necessary at second tier? It's just my question. That might be a whole nother can of worms, but
Yeah, the sight reading is only for regional auditions. Second tier will remain just on the rep.
so there.
Yeah, all this talk about sight reading would just be if the regions wanted to implement Snap Audition for
Okay, thank
your
you.
auditions.
Thank you. I
And it
misunderstood
has
that. I
that.
appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. It has that functionality. And then first of all, probably going to tie up this part of the conversation because I want to be out of here by 4:30. I get to have dinner with my recent graduate who's been away at college for a week, and I'm going to go and do that. So and I forgot what I was going to say because I had a dad moment there. So we'll move on because I'm a failure. That's going to be nice on the TMEA YouTube page. All right, moving on down the agenda then, everyone, because imagine it was really profound, everyone. I'd like to move to actionable steps and then go to sharing what each regional is doing. Let me just share my screen again here. All right. These are actionable steps that we could decide we want to do. Should we have a goal to release each region's audition and honor choir dates by December 1st this year? Would that serve our directors to give them time to figure that out? Should we have audition rep and sight reading standards posted by early next semester so that they know here's what my kid needs to be able to sing and sight read? Because I think we ought to have different sight reading standards for 9-10 versus 11-12, which currently we don't really have as a state. And so we ought to let our directors know pretty early in the spring semester so that they can start thinking about that and what they're going to do to get their kids prepared to do that by, middle of September. Should we have info sessions on Snap Audition? And this would be for the people who are going to organize the auditions, but also for any director. If we decide that regions are going to use this, we could have info sessions this spring so that directors could see what it looks like and play around with it and see what works and what doesn't. In terms of immediate communication, I'd like to, go ahead, Rachel.
I just had one super quick question about the Snap Audition. If regions decided they wanted to use that, would we be able to use it under TMEA's umbrella, or would we have to purchase our own subscription?
It's not subscription based. It's entirely based off of who is submitting an audition. So I would suggest that your association would create their own account. And then from there, you can set how the auditions are being paid for. For example, the All-State band auditions are paid for by TMEA, but really the students and the student registration for All-State are paying that. There is an option where you can select entrant pays. I would not advise that just because it gets a little convoluted. But to answer your first question, I would suggest you set up your own. It doesn't cost anything.
So my understanding is that TMEA is going to pay for second tier testing, but if the regions wanted to use it for your regional auditions, you could set up your own that way. And I know for right now, I think we charge MTVA kids $10 a head for auditions. And Carter, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Snap audition fee is $4 and change per person.
It's just under $4, and like MTSBOA is doing kind of a hybrid audition this year, and that's what they've done is they've raised their audition fee from, I think it was $8 to $14 to offset that cost.
But if your region is already charging kids for their audition fees, that should cover anything they do for Snap Audition. And then we're paying that from the regions and not for hospitality for the audition rooms and things like that, because it's kind of all being done in the PJs at home. Here are the things that I would like to send out regarding Allstate this year and the next year. And I just wanted to run by this with everyone because it includes some stuff that has to do with this. I've been waiting to put out the list of rep for 2026 because there was one piece that was out of print and then back in print and out of print, and we figured it all out now. But obviously, I'm going to send the conductors and the rep for this year's Allstate really soon. I'm going to include that music is being delivered to your regions and that your regions will get the music to you that way. The 26 dates and times, which, by the way, the concerts for us this year are on Friday afternoon for all state choirs. So that should happen before dinner on Friday. So anyone who would like to go back that night has a reasonable chance of getting home before Saturday. We already have conductors for 2027. Obviously not rep yet. And then finally, the last two things here. Do we think it's wise now, and anyone jump in, for me to go on and tell everyone as I'm announcing All-State 2026 conductors and rep and dates and times to say, we do have a committee of folks that are working toward fall 2026. Our goal is to have information to you, from each region sometime, before March of this year. Is there anyone who has a problem with my, teeing that up for our regions? I don't think I'll be as specific as saying December 1st or anything, but if I were just to say, by March 1st this year, we'll have codified information for each region's fall 2026 plans. And then what about the handbook stuff? Obviously, I'll make those changes in there of the errors that I made. But even if I just send out a draft right now, is there anyone that has a problem with me sending out a draft of just the choral parts of what All-State handbook would look like in fall 2026? That way, if anyone has questions, they have a year to absorb it and ask them. All right. Any thoughts here about the December 1st and February 1st deadlines that we're going to self-impose? Does that seem unreasonable to anyone?
Do we think that our instrumental colleagues will have their dates by this point? Because if we're trying to put together, that's the only question mark, is their dates.
I think if we're doing it, they will. If they see we're doing it, they're going to jump on that bandwagon. I mean, the answer is we don't know, but
I think the instrumental people might already have their dates.
So it's a yes.
Carter, yeah, I hope those are flexible, because if they don't jive with the choral dates, then they're not really dates, right? Like if we're on top of each other in ways that are unrepairable, then we'll have to look at all those dates. Because we've got to do this together with that shortened window of time.
Hey, Brian, is
Yes.
this published dates for this year's auditions and concerts or next school year's auditions and concerts?
I'm saying that by December 1st this year, we should tell them what auditions are going to look like for next year.
Okay.
In terms of 2026, it'd be the stuff for this April.
Yeah, I don't think any of the instrumental folks are concrete on those dates at
Sure.
this point, but I feel very confident that they have an outline in mind already.
Yeah. And again, I ran all these dates by JR, so it's possible that they've already considered, this proposed timeline anyway.
Hey, Dr. Russell, and if need be, if we need to just create some type of, using the TMEA Zoom account or whatever, if we just need to host, the east side of the state gets together for like an hour on some day, or west side of the state or middle, so that the regional presidents can sort of discuss it, we certainly can throw that option out, as far as calendaring and stuff.
Love that. And I think JR was on that as well, or, wanted that to happen also. And then maybe get all 9 of the regions together to talk about it as well, All right, before we start sharing, just to kind of make sure that we roll with stuff here, do we want to go on and set a date and time for our next meeting? I'll stop sharing here and I'll pull out my calendar. What does everyone think about Sunday afternoons at this time? Does that tend to work for everyone? As a general rule, anyway? Is October 19th too late, too far away, or do you think we ought to meet earlier? Like that might give us time to kind of consider what we've talked about here and then come back with some actionable stuff.
I think that sounds good because I think you'll be clear of most fall breaks.
Right. That's what I was hoping to look at. All right. Well, Tiger Team meeting at 3 p.m. Central Time on Sunday, October 19th. I'll follow up with an email right after this. But it's there. All right. In our last 8 minutes here, what have your regions already been thinking about? Be ready to share. We're thinking about having in-person auditions. I know like instrumental folks are talking about maybe doing in-person sight reading or having a virtual like what do you call it? First step to the audition, to screening. That's what it is. Has your region talked about the levels of sight reading or the levels of rep that you're talking about doing, types of rep? Enlighten all of us, those of you who have done some work on this. Mr. Breimer.
A lot of what I was hoping to propose to our membership was contingent upon what I learned in this meeting and what I've been reading and everything. And so at this point, I'm curious as to, at this point, I think most of the members are wanting to keep things as they are with our All East after the second tier audition. That's what a lot of directors have told me. If that's not the case from other areas that are not middle, I would love to hear that, other people who are on this call who are in ETVA. But anyway, at this point, I'm very curious to hear from the other regions if you have to modify your ensembles to match what TMEA is doing at Allstate, because for ETVA, it could work the way we have it, but I'm interested to hear what you all have to say. Thank you.
Go ahead, Garrett.
So for us in Middle Tennessee, we have had a meeting and we've kind of divided up tasks. So we're still looking at repertoire is a big thing. We haven't solidified anything in terms of like when our regional event would happen in terms of second tier and compared to all that stuff. I think our ensemble sizes, I did a spreadsheet with that. I think we're going to serve like 10 less students if we end up going with the model that I've made, but it's going to mimic the Allstate model. We'll have a 9-10 SSAA and or SATB, 11-12 SATB, and the other two ensembles. Keeping in mind, like using the last 3 years of auditions as a way to serve as quality control on how that's going to look. But we were waiting for this meeting, and TJ, Brennan, and I were waiting for this meeting so we could have some more steps to talk to our people about.
That's kind of where we've been. I've been kind of waiting on this meeting to see what we discussed before we really took, very much back. So I think that we'll be able to give some good info and see where we can move forward from here, I think.
I think the only thing that's dictated by the policy that we adopted back in April is that 9th and 10th graders have to audition together and 11th and 12th graders have to audition together. And it makes sense in my mind that ensembles would also mimic that, but There's also plenty of ways where you could audition them that way and then place them in various ensembles also. So there's no reason why things have to change in crazy ways, or if you can't phase it in over multiple years. I think the biggest change I know for Middle Tennessee right now, freshmen audition separately from 10th through 11th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders, and 10th through 12th audition against each other. And so that'll be a big change for middle for sure, and I suspect for all three regions. And then in terms of right now, freshman honor choir happens in a different month from 10th through 12th grade mid-state. And if we were to try to put all those together, we've also got to find a venue that's going to be able to fit all of those kids under one roof. And that'll be a thing that we have to consider as well.
Can't raise. Here we go. My hand raising wasn't working. But I think for us in West, I mean, we're going to obviously talk about it, I'm sure, at length. I think we really like the way our regional events currently go, and we have all Southwest and Northwest, so we have two separate subregions. And probably the simplest way is to just take the allotments for second tier, cut them in half, and take the top X number from each subregion within each grade division. And those students would be the ones who qualify for second tier. So not all students who qualify for all Southwest would qualify for second tier from West, if that makes sense. But I'm sure we'll have good discussions about it. But I think we can definitely make it work without too many like giant changes.
Well, to sum everything up, I'm going to hopefully this week announce to the state, and I just send it out to the regional presidents, and then they send it out to your members, who the all-state conductors are for this year, what their rep is, that we're sending out the rep. I'm going to send out a general timeline that by March 1st of this year, each region should have everything ready to announce to your own members about how regional auditions are going to work for the next year. And I'm going to send out that corrected version of the choral portions of the All-State Handbook that'll go into effect that next year, just so that people can kind of wrap their mind around what everything's going to look like for that fall, and have this year to absorb it and plan for it. And our next meeting is October 19th at 3 p.m. And maybe by that time, each region will have a skeleton of a plan, and that'll give us time to start working with our instrumental colleagues on what this all needs to look like. And I think if we could all come back with an idea of whether your region would like to consider working with Snap Audition for regional auditions, because if no region's going to do that, we don't have to worry about the sight reading portion of it, and that just changes the workflow a little bit. Well, thank you everyone for giving up a Sunday for this. Mr. Chester.
Hey, real quickly, I just wanted to say thank you. And also, Dr. Russell, if you want, we'll make sure to include all of this information in the next issue of the Digital Digest. There's now a link for this for our monthly newsletter that's on the TMEA website now. The TMEA website is in the process of being revamped. We're working with John Womack and getting that all kind of up to speed, but just want to mimic the work that you guys have been doing and to say thank you so much for your dedication to your students and to TMEA.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.